Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello there, everybody. It is now the top of the hour, so we're going to get started with our public webinar. Thank you, everybody, for attending our public webinar for FileHold software, wherever you are tuning in today. My name's David Knight, and I'm going to be one of the presenters along with Kevin MacArthur. And today's public webinar consists of three parts. The first part of the webinar will be a brief PowerPoint introduction about our company and our software program. And in the second part, Kevin MacArthur will be taking you through a live demo of FileHold. And the final part of this webinar, it's reserved for your questions. And at any time, you can type your questions in our chat window and we'll respond and share our answers with you and the rest of the group at the conclusion of today's public webinar. All right, so without any other further delays, we're going to get moving into today's public webinar. And I'm going to ask the following questions. What is document management software and why do you need it for your business? Well, most companies are regularly inundated by various paper and electronic documents such as contracts, manuals, forms, resumes, and invoices. What do you do with all of these documents? And how do you manage and control all of this information in your office or department? Well, in most cases, documents are manually stored away in filing cabinets and boxes or saved electronically in a server. But this isn't a solution. It actually creates more problems. With both options, plenty of valuable time is wasted searching for information that is misfiled or even deleted. There's also no way of checking if your documents are secure or even up to date. FileHold software stores documents of all types from various sources electronically in a centralized repository that can be accessed from your desktop, web browser, or mobile device. Once documents are scanned or uploaded into our repository, the life cycle for each document can be stored, classified, and updated right through to the scheduled deletion or disposition. On the next screen, here are some common problems that we hear from many businesses that aren't using a document management software system like FileHold. Things like, how can we get rid of all these filing cabinets full of paper? We need to go paperless. Or how do we know which is the most recent version of a document? Who was working on it last? We need version control. Or why can't we share our work so information can be reviewed and signed off by other people and departments? We need a workflow solution. Another one is, we have too many paper forms. Why can't they be electronic? We need e-form processing. And finally, how can we stay in compliance with record retention and disposition? What safeguards do we have to protect our intellectual property? We need to keep our info secure and industry compliant. And another one recently during this pandemic, of course, is how can we access our documents remotely? And FileHold has remote access capabilities as well. Also, if any of these other problems do exist, FileHold, of course, can help you out. FileHold offers both perpetual and monthly per user licensing options for our customers, and FileHold can be installed using one of the following three options. It can be installed directly on your own server, it can be installed in the cloud with the hosting provider of your choice, or FileHold provides our own cloud hosting services in the Azure environment. And for easy purchase, FileHold offers competitor trade-in credits, interest-free financing, and rental programs with no ongoing obligation. If you're interested in receiving a price quote, please send an email to sales@filehold.com, and a member of our sales team will respond back to you with that information. Also, do you need any help in developing a document management strategy for your company or department, but you just don't know where to start? FileHold sales team can answer any of your questions regarding implementation processes, data migrations, integration with other programs, records management regulations, and industry compliance. Also, if you've been shopping around and looking at other document management software programs, you might be wondering what distinguishes FileHold from our competitors. Well, here on the screen are some major differences. First of all, FileHold's features are developed and guided by our customers. FileHold is tightly integrated with other software programs. FileHold is off-the-shelf software, packaged software, but is very highly configurable. We provide many optional features, but only what you require. FileHold's pricing is based on intensity of use, which is of great value for your money. On the process side of things, FileHold is a remote software which can be downloaded. On average, we guarantee 2 hours. We also offer webinar-based installation and training, also online videos and guides to help you along the way and get familiarized with the software. Our support does a great job in responding back to any of your inquiries, generally within minutes. We also offer product upgrades, which are included with our file care support program as well. FileHold also has a very diverse clientele located throughout the world, and we have customers from government, finance, manufacturing, construction, engineering, healthcare, education, the natural resources sector, and nonprofit agencies. In total, FileHold has been sold to more than 500 organizations, and we've installed more than 22,000 seats. Also on the next screen, we also have received plenty of positive feedback about FileHold from our customers in helping out with their document management issues, whatever they may be. In today's live demo, we're going to be showing you some of FileHold's standard features and a few optional features as well. But as outlined in the pyramid diagram, FileHold contains an amazing list of many other features, and we'd be happy to show you any of these features in greater detail at a private demo designed for your specific requirements. So just before we move on to today's live demo, I'm going to briefly introduce you to FileHold's very easy to use interface and explain some of the areas on the main screen that you're going to be looking at. So first of all, here at the very top of the screen is our full text search bar, which is used for performing general searches for our documents. And it's like conducting a search on Google where you enter a word, and our full text search feature quickly retrieves any data associated with that search. And also during the live demo, Kevin's going to show you this feature along with other advanced search capabilities. And our search feature is a very prominent feature in FileHold. All right, now moving into the center of the screen, this is where you're going to select and view your documents. And you'll see there are also various toolbar icons where you can perform various functions such as uploading, checking out your documents, launching a workflow, looking at a favorite document. Uh, there are also user access rights that can be set for every individual or group on every drawer, folder, and document that's stored in our repository. And moving on over to the right side of the screen, this is our metadata pane, which shows the key search fields when searching for a specific document. And now moving over to the left side of the screen, this is our document library structure, which is very similar to Windows Explorer, where documents can be filed away in cabinets, drawers, and folders. And finally, getting down to the very bottom of the screen, this is our document tray, which allows users to collect and perform actions on documents that are filed in various folders. And these documents can be viewed very quickly without even having to open them. Also, FileHold contains image viewers, so you can view various documents within the system. Also, as part of our latest version, FileHold 16, you're able to create your own documents where you can create documents from a PDF within FileHold. All right, so that concludes the introduction portion. So most of this time is reserved for our online demo now, the live demo, which will be conducted by Kevin MacArthur. So I will hand the controls over to him. So Kevin, are you ready to get going here?
I am ready to go. Can you hear me okay?
Absolutely, loud and clear. So I will make you the presenter now, and you can show us all about FileHold.
Okay, I am now broadcasting my screen. You should be able to see the FileHold website.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, and then let's just transition over here to my blue desktop.
Yeah, we see your blue desktop with all of its icons.
Okay, perfect. So everybody, thank you for coming. We really appreciate it. We've got a lot of people on this call today, so thank you for coming. Also quite an international presence as well, so I'm glad that you're here. And one of the things when we have a group this size is we'll have a lot of questions come in. So by all means, if you think of anything you want to dig deeper into, put that into the chat window and we'll address it at the end of this webinar. And it really does help other people. So if you think of something, put it in the chat and we'll address it. Also, if you have to drop off or you can't stay for the whole hour, that's fine. We'll follow up with you and answer any questions that you have one-on-one as well. So we're definitely here to help you. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is to log into FileHold, and there are three interfaces that you could do that with. One is a desktop application, one is a mobile interface, one is a browser interface. Could be as simple as just clicking an icon to come into the software. Could be that you right-click a little stack of papers and log in. It could be that your system knows who you are, and when you boot up your machine in the morning, it automatically brings you into FileHold through Active Directory or even just through your login. But sooner or later, you'll end up here. This is what I like to call the front door of FileHold. One of the first things we hope people notice is how clean and simple this interface has been designed. It's not meant to be intimidating. There's not a lot of buttons or chaos or things to learn here. In fact, most of these things you'll never mess with. Under the hood here, some settings that most people never have to deal with. You have a search bar that behaves a lot like Google. And then you have a library structure over here that's based on file cabinets. And as you would imagine, if you go into a file cabinet, there'll be drawers inside. If you pull a drawer open, there'll be folders within it. If you go into a folder, you would expect to find files. Everything behaves intuitively. If you double click on a file, it opens up in the native application. We can see that here. Okay. If we right click, we have menu options. If we hover over buttons, the buttons tell you what they do. You can sort by columns. You can add or remove columns whenever you want. You can also set up different views for different reasons. So if I log in and I want to see an HR point of view, I might click on this I-9 and maybe I'll see employee name, date of birth, address, and social if that data is available. But maybe you see things from more of a safety point of view. We can go into a safety look and see permit numbers, department numbers, permit types. So as long as that metadata is available, you would see that as well. So it gives you that option to be able to look at FileHold the way that you like to think. I might want to see the last name, first name, social security, and then the doc type. You like to see things a little differently. Both of those things can be accommodated. Okay, so you've already mastered a big part of FileHold. It's very simple. Browsing and finding what you're looking for. Not a huge departure from a file share, not a big departure from Windows Explorer. It is not Windows Explorer though. It doesn't have the problems where you can accidentally drag a folder into a folder, and there's some controls and security that we can put on this that are different than what you're used to, but we'll come back and talk about this a little later. So forget about all that, and I'm gonna click on search. Now, search gives me this nice clean search bar, or if I want, I can just come up here to the top and use this search bar that's always around. If I type in a word or a phrase, FileHold goes through all that structure I just showed you and brings back any results that you have rights to see, the security permissions to see. So I got 43 results with the search term policy. Had David done the exact same search, he would have gotten 1 million documents back. So we typed in a search policy, and some of these, it makes perfect sense why we're seeing them. This is a crew policy handbook, pretty common sense. Alcohol drug policy memo, water softener policy. But can anyone explain this? Why did that file come back? This is an engineering document, and it has the weirdest file name you've ever seen. So already we know something larger is happening than just a word search. It's not just searching location, we know that. It's not just searching the file name, there's something bigger going on. So let's talk about what that is. If I go into this file, we're also searching the metadata of this file. So this is a document schema, it's a policy handbook, the brand, and a certain section. Look what happens if I change it to a policy memo. It now wants the name, social security, policy type, effective date, and whether or not it was signed. So these index values or metadata fields are going to be under your control. And I'll talk more about this later, but that's how you're searching. You're searching the file name. You're also searching across metadata or index information. I'm also searching the version history. Who owns this document? Is it checked in or checked out? Is it part of a workflow? Is it part of a retention policy? The file size, the format, the location. I'm searching all those elements as well. In addition to that, I'm also searching every single word of every page of your document so that anytime the word or phrase was mentioned, you'll see why it came back in the search. Lastly, I'm also searching when it was modified, who created it, how it was created, what software did they use to make it, how long did they work on the file. All the elements that your native application is giving us, we're searching those attributes as well. So a recap, I'm searching your file names, I'm searching your index or metadata information, data about your data, if you will. I'm searching your version properties, every word of your file, and the file properties themselves. What that means is it's impossible to misfile something in FileHold. You already know that we have this Windows Explorer type structure, and this is intuitive and it makes sense. But if I put this policy memo in the wrong employee file, or if I put it in accounting for that matter, it would make no difference at all. This is here for human comfort, whereas we've got power in the search to transcend beyond a file location. Okay, so it's impossible to misfile in FileHold. Now, when we come back to search, I'm going to stop here for a minute, but when we come back to search, I'm going to show you how deep this goes. We can get really, really specific about what we're looking for when it comes to the search engine. So you haven't seen the last of search. This is just kind of the beginning, but I wanted you to understand the basic part of this. You're browsing or you're using kind of a search bar there. Okay, so one of the things people are always concerned about is how do we get files in? How are we making these classifications? How are we getting this metadata entered in? How hard is it? How long does it take? That's a big concern. These systems look great when the work is done, but we've got to get the work done. So forget about everything I've said so far, and we're going to go to an area called the inbox. Okay, now think of the inbox as a blank table. Okay, I've just wiped everything off the table. There's nothing here. Your job is to put things on this table, figure out what they are and where they're supposed to go. So one of the easiest things you can do is to grab the documents that you want to file and pull them onto that clean white table. Okay, so here they are. Now, if you don't like drag and drop, which I don't, I would have hit the plus sign to do the same thing. I would hit the plus sign, go find the files that I want. Oops. And I would bring them in to this interface. I could have also scanned into here using any scanner, my desktop scanners, my big expensive scanners, multifunctions, incoming faxes. My desktop can talk to FileHold, my servers can talk to FileHold, other applications, my remote sites could all be doing this. But once the files are here, the concept is identical. It's always the same thing. And it's no different if you're doing this manually. What am I looking at and where is it supposed to go? So you double click a file, and you're looking at this document. Now, if you have dual monitors, I highly recommend that you use them. You can put this document on one side and have FileHold fully open on the other. But if you don't, that's not a problem. You can shape this the way you want. But what we're going to do is we're going to look at the file, and we're going to hit Set Metadata. And then a door is going to open up for us here on the right-hand side. In this door, you're going to have a list of all the document types that you've defined for your specific organization. You'll see a lot of them in here that will have no relevance to you, but I've got some in here for my own demos. But if you pick one of these doc types, let's take an I-9. Based on that decision, it's asking me for employee name, number, address, social, and date of birth. Look what happens if I change it though. If I go down, maybe it was an invoice. Well, now it wants vendor name, date, invoice, PO, amount, and payment terms. So not only are your document types completely your choice, but so are the attributes that are associated with them. So for example, I need a vendor name here. I could type that vendor name in, no problem. But if I have accounting software, there'd be no reason to do that. I could literally fish into my accounting software and pull in from a database lookup. And if I pick Citrix here, it might already know my account number, my payment terms, it might know my sales rep name, whatever it might be, because I already knew one of the elements in that database. Now there's also date pickers in here. There's also ways to type in here. You can also have pull downs and so on. Once you go through this though and you hit save, some interesting things start to happen. The first thing that happens is the file name is renamed into a standardized naming convention. So this might be flipped over to say invoice-12345- vendor name, something to that effect. You can control what those attributes look like in the file name. The second thing it'll do is clean up after itself. So now it's going to only be in one location. If I put this into FileHold and I save it, it's now under security, it's now under Audit Trail, and you have to have rights to that document within FileHold to see it. There's no way to go around that security. You have to have credentials in FileHold to make access. Okay. The next thing it does is it sends out notifications letting you know that the file is here. So maybe you care about these types of files, and so once they arrived, the moment they come in, you'll be notified immediately, once a day, once a week, and so on. Now there's one more thing that can happen. We can also start a workflow which will automatically route documents for review and approval the moment they're filed, and we'll talk more about that a little bit later as well. Okay, so I wanted you to see this. This is a bit of the manual process of getting files into FileHold. We have database lookups and things to try to make life faster, but at the same time, I wanted you to understand the construct of document, schema, and your metadata fields. Another really common thing to do in FileHold is to file through Microsoft Office. You probably didn't catch it, but in David's PowerPoint, up here at the top, there's a little FileHold tab. And in that tab, he could browse FileHold to help him find these logos. He could add this whole presentation in. He could check it in. If him and I were working on it together, we could collaborate using this button. And I could also add this as part of a workflow to make sure I'm on the right track and send this to our manager to make sure he's happy with the outcome of our presentation. You'll find these buttons in all of Microsoft Office, including Visio, OneNote, Excel, Outlook. They're all here. Whoops, go back to Word. You can see that they're here. Outlook is pretty handy. So if you're using Outlook for your email, you can go to an email. If I sent you my time card, you could just grab it and add it to FileHold if you want. You could also drag and drop the whole email into the system. You could also double click it like normal and come over here and just add it directly into FileHold. It will read the to, the from, the subject, and the date. It will read the body of the email and crawl the attachments for you automatically. It's really, really useful. Okay. Word has a neat little feature in it in that I happen to make this into a form. So this happens to be an application that I've made into a fillable form. Somebody could go in here and change the dates if they want. Just kind of a handy thing. And you can even set this up where none of these other fields are editable, just the ones that are fillable. You can do this in Adobe as well. But the idea would be that if I hit that button again, FileHold will identify that this was an application, and it will have filled in all those metadata fields for me off of the form. So now we're getting into some automation. Now we're actually reading your forms and populating data accordingly. Very, very powerful. Okay. All right, also we have this concept of what's called a watch folder. So I'm going to clean out the inbox. We've got a blank table again. And let's say that I've got an office in Texas and David's in Vancouver. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a folder, call it policy, okay? So this folder is local. This is on my machine. Meanwhile, David's thousands and thousands of miles away from me. What I'm going to do is I'm going to tell FileHold to monitor that directory in Texas. So I'm going to go to Tools, Watch Folders, and I'm going to hit Add, and I'm going to go find the folder or folders that I want to monitor. Okay, so I'm going to hit OK. I'll explain this gray box to you later, but for now I'm just going to hit OK again. And without being much of a programmer, I've now built a very long bridge between Texas and Canada. So what that looks like now, if I go out and create content in Texas, a scanned image, let's say, or let's do a spreadsheet. One more. Word doc. Okay, 3 very different documents. It could have been 300, it could have been 3,000 or a million, doesn't matter. But I'm going to take these 3 documents and put this folder on my desktop. And then I'm going to go to lunch. Meanwhile, somewhere in the neighborhood between 10 and 15 seconds, David is going to get these 3 documents where he can then look at them, figure out what they are and where they need to go. There's a service that will run. Any of those watch folders that have been built like that will actually be picked up and brought to a centralized location, or even brought to your location. Maybe you scan documents in as you're traveling, and when you get back to your office, they're waiting for you on your desk so you can take care of them. So now my job or David's job might be to come in here and look at this file and again, figure out what it is and where it's supposed to go. Very handy, very useful. You can also go a bit further with that gray box that I had turned off. So if we go back to it, I can tell that gray box where to drop off policy documents. Okay, so I'm going to have those put in my policy and procedures area. Now I've built a bridge in Texas to where policies go at home office. I also know a lot about this policy because I've been writing it for the last 3 months. So what I can do is I can preset ahead of time that this is a health plan for next year. Got a bunch of 7s in there. It was issued today, and this relates to inpatient care. Okay. What I've in essence done now is if somebody puts 5 documents into a folder in Texas, they will be brought to Vancouver, identified as policies. The metadata will be filled in. The folder in Texas will be cleaned out. A workflow might start that says we've got 7 days to make sure all employees worldwide sign off on this. It'll send out a retention policy that says in 2 years, this health plan is going to be archived for 100 years and then be deleted. It's going to send you email notifications, links, and calendar entries all automatically. So all these methods that we're talking about are standard features in FileHold. There will be times that you want to completely automate it, and you should, if you can. Nobody likes to type, it slows us down. But there are other times that you'll want a human being to review something and to kind of glance at it and make judgment calls based on what you're doing, and that's okay too. But all these methods are standard features. So we're not asking you to choose one or the other, you get all of them, and it's just a matter of setting it up. The other thing I would tell you is don't worry, we'll help you with this. When we get to know you and understand your use case, we're going to sit down and go through a kickoff meeting as well as a best practices exercise to make sure you understand what we're doing, learn about your retention policies, your security models, compliance, and all those things. So we're here to help with that part of this project as well. Okay, so now you understand filing. You understand a lot of it. There's other ways to file. There's a thing called zonal OCR, barcode extraction. There's other methods we can use, but this is the basic idea of document types and metadata and some of the things you can do to get things in quickly. Now, forget about all this, and we're going to go back to the beginning. We're going to browse again. Remember when we all started all this, we went into HR and we browsed over here. Okay, we double click on it. Remember, it opened up in the native app, and we can see it here. Maybe if I click on it. There we go. Okay, we also did a search, and if you remember, we typed in the word policy up here. This time I'm going to do it here just to illustrate they're the same. And I got 43 results. David got 1,000. One of the things I didn't tell you at this time, though, is that there are algorithms behind the scenes. This simple word search is actually doing much more than just looking at that word as it relates to the file name or it relates to the metadata. It's also searching for related words. It might look for policy or policies. It might look for the word police if it's not sure if you made a spelling error. It might look for policy within 10 words of healthcare. I want policy, but not contract. I want synonyms, misspelled words, fuzzy logic. Maybe that O is a 0. Maybe the L is a 1 and somebody screwed up. We can search that as well. It also searches by relevancy. This one's 100% likely to be what you're after. This one has a 41% chance. This one's 11 and so on. So it actually has algorithms behind the scenes that are looking for how often the word policy was mentioned to see how relevant that is for you. Most of your users won't think about this. They won't even care. None of us really care how Google works. We just type something in and we find what we need. It's the same idea, but it's trying to help you make sense, especially when you're vague like this. If you type in the word policy, that's pretty limited. Now, there'll be times that you're not vague. You know exactly what you want. Show me all contracts that Kevin forgot to sign before he went on vacation for these 3 clients, that it's under $5,000 that David hasn't approved yet. And I would be able to find that in 3 seconds. Here's what you would do. You go to search, okay, and you would click on advanced. Advanced gives you this nice little string, and in this string, you have a list of all the document types that you have set up in FileHold. Remember, that's the I-9 that we first looked at. Here's the invoice that we spent a little time on. And remember, when we filed an invoice, we had to know the schema, amount, payment terms, vendor name, and so on. So if I choose this, that'll give me every invoice we've ever seen as a company. Well, we've been around since 2005, so that's going to be way too many. I don't want that. So hit the plus sign, and you get a second level of search here. And in that list, we go a bit further, and we know who the vendor is. And if you know the vendor name, just type it in, do the best you can, or pull it in from your accounting software. Okay. Now that's going to give me all invoices for Salesforce. Well, we pay those guys every month. Okay, then keep going. What else do I want to know? How about the date? Now, if you know the date was yesterday, life's pretty easy, and you can say, I want to see the invoice that came in from Salesforce yesterday. The odds are you wouldn't know when that invoice came in. So even though you have a date picker, you also have the ability to say things like no older than 90 days. I want any invoice from Salesforce in the last 90 days, at least 30 days. At least needs to be within a month. Greater than or less than or equal to. How about between? Sometime in the last 20 days, this thing came in. It wasn't me who worked on the file. It was somebody else in the company. I can go to a company directory to somebody else who's in accounting and pull them in. Hit the plus sign again. Has this thing been paid? Has it been approved? Has it been looked at? If it's been approved, is it pending? Was it not approved? Was it not even submitted? Was it put on hold for some reason? And on you go. You can get very, very, very specific out here. You can also save this as a saved search so that anytime I want to run this query, or if I have people on my staff who may be intimidated by this, what I can do is just come over here to my saved searches and click on one of these, and it will build that specific template and run the results for me. Okay, so here are all the invoices within a certain time window, within a certain amount for this company. If I click on this one, the template changes, and we can see these documents. Safety, here are all the documents that meet this safety requirement, and so on. Not only can these be used to find results, they can also be used to push out reports. So if you had the amount, if you had the GL codes, you had all this information out here that you wanted, you could export that out to a CSV or spreadsheet and have quick access to a report, again, without being a programmer at all. So really powerful. It's very powerful. Now, one of the things I like the most about FileHold is that you're not forced into one way of thinking. Some people are never going to do this. They just aren't. So, but they might do this. They might browse into Andy's file and then launch a search from Andy's file. So if they browse a little bit, but then they click search, and now they're only looking in Andy's world. If they type in policy now, instead of getting 43 results, they get 4 because they've narrowed down to Andy. So that's a really useful way of thinking. If I browse to some degree, but then I get over here, I can right click and search that way. Some people aren't even going to do that. They're going to go into your HR system or your CRM system or accounting software or ERP, whatever it is, and they're going to have a link, and they're just going to click on that link, and it's going to bring them to the supporting documentation that they wanted. So by just clicking that link in your other system, you'll find it here. Okay. Some people aren't even going to do that. Some people will be in other systems. This is just kind of a dummy version of QuickBooks, a screenshot really, but I'm going to simulate it. This might be QuickBooks. This might be an application that you wrote in-house. But the idea that if I'm in a field and I want to search this person's account number, I can just hit a key on my keyboard. And you can't see this, but I'm going to hit Control-D. FileHold rushes to the forefront. We'll have launched that search, ran a query for me, and brought me back 14 results, of which I can see why that came back. I can look for the metadata and see what's going on. I can hit highlight results and see if the word 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ever shows up, and so on. Okay, so again, there's no right or wrong here. We don't want to change the culture to the point where people are intimidated or nervous by this. We want them to have options and kind of move through FileHold the way they see fit. All right, so that's the most important stuff about FileHold. Now we'll get into some of the things I think will be useful to you. You may not use all these items. Some of them you'll live and die by, others you may never use. So David mentioned this to you, but there's little stars, and you notice that some of these are yellow. If I click on a yellow one, it turns white. If I click on a white one, it turns yellow. Okay, And what that means is I'm storing this document as a favorite. So if we collapse all this just for clarity's sake, and I go over here to my FileHold, I have this nice favorites folder with all the documents that I refer to often. Now these are not copies. They still live in HR. This lives in law enforcement, accounting, engineering, healthcare. However, it'll feel like the original because it really is the original. It's living in a home location. I just happen to have a quick access to it. Kind of like you do with favorite websites. You're not actually storing the website or a copy of it. You're just pointing to where it lives. It's the same idea here in FileHold. Now just next to those stars, you see some colorful dots. Some are green, some are red, some are a combination of those. So what that's indicating is security rights that you have on that specific document. FileHold sets security at 12 levels. When I log in the morning, I might only see one file cabinet, and you would see 50. I might get into a file cabinet, and I might see 2 folders, and you would see 10. I might have access to this folder and see 5 documents here, and you would see 100. And I might have full rights to delete this one or change the metadata over here. But if I go to a red dot, it tells me that I've got some issues with this one that I'm not allowed to modify. And now those buttons go away. They're now grayed out and edit is gone. There is no way around this security. If someone types in payroll, excited to find out what others are making in the company, they'll find no results. Someone who's allowed to see payroll documents will find what they need. So there's no clever search in the world that will get you around this security. You have to have access to these documents at the document type level. Now, sometimes when you find a document that's locked and it has a red dot on it, it's because it's been checked out, meaning that normally you would have rights to this. You'd have the ability to delete it or edit or change it, but you don't right now because somebody else is working on version 10. So you can see what's going on. You can look at other versions and see who has it. You can see the usage of the file, kind of what they've been doing. And when it's over, when they're ready to put it back, you're going to see any checked out documents that I have, I'm able to release, let people know that it's back, force people to put in changes via metadata so we know what's going on, delete the local copy off of your laptop so that you don't have 2 versions in 2 places. Okay, so you're able to release that and let people know what's going on. I can set alerts on files. I care about this document. So if anybody makes a change to it or deletes it or moves it, I'm going to know about it immediately, once a day or once a week. I can also subscribe to individual folders if I want. So if somebody puts something into this student folder or into this business management section, I want to know immediately, once a day, once a week. You can monitor your own folders and your own documents. You can also set reminders on things. I need to get my time card done every so often. So every month, let's say, or every week, it's going to come to me and kind of tell me what's going on. So, whoops, I went too far. That's why I got confused. So here's my time card. If I hit Manage Reminder and I click on it, you can see that weekly or maybe once into the future or every year, a policy is going to come tell me that it needs to be refreshed and looked at, and we can see what's going on. What that will do is it will email you every week, but it will also send you a calendar notification letting you know that you have a task that you wanted to be reminded of, and here it is. And you can go right to that time card and see the file itself. Okay, you saw this already, but anything I've recently looked at will be here. Anything I've recently pulled in will be here. And this cleans itself up over time. So within a few more days, this will be completely empty unless I put new documents in there. There's a calendar that will tell you your tasks. It'll tell you your workflows. If you have late ones, they'll be red. It'll also tell you your retention policies. So if 100 years have gone by and it's now time for documents to be deleted from the system, it will tell you, and those documents can be deleted automatically, or they can let your administrators know that they're up for destruction, and you can control it. There's also a dashboard here that will tell you how many people are in the system right now, how big the library is getting, what your license looks like, and all those sorts of things are here as well. Okay. Now remember what I told you, that if you hover over buttons, the buttons tell you what they do. You can get a copy of something, you can check documents out. If you highlight more than one, you can link them together so that if you ever find any one of these files, you'll find its relatives with a single click. So as an example of that, if we find this document here, it has 3 links to it. If I click on the link, here they are, regardless of where they live. This is Pan American Health Organization, and this is AMC, and they're now in front of me, regardless of where they live. Now, it is security driven. I might see 3 and you might see 10, but at the end of the day, if I click on that link, I'll see related files regardless, and that's really useful. You can delete if you have rights, and remember, that goes away if you don't. You can email documents. You can also send out a nice set of table of contents. So by clicking links, I can actually build you this table of contents where you can now securely send documents around the world without having to upload the actual files. So this is really useful not only from an audit perspective, but even from just a large attachment perspective. This could be a CAD file. This could be a video. And it doesn't matter now because we're just sending the references to it. Okay. You can also email and check documents out at the same time. So let's say you're getting on a plane. You could grab the ones you need to work on, email them to yourself, and lock them simultaneously. While you're on the airplane or offline, you can work on these documents in an offline mode. When you get back to the airport or when you get back to home office, you can synchronize these to home office, to the cloud, wherever you want. You've seen me hit this button a few times, but this is our metadata pane, so it shows all of our metadata, and you can make changes to it if you have rights to, active or expunged. I can change the data as I need to. You can see the version history of the URLs as well. We also have a workspace or a tray. So let's say you're dealing with documents and you need to get them all together. Someone asks you to look at this Wakefield trucking document. You can just drag and drop it down to your desk. Go home or go to lunch, come back tomorrow. It's still waiting for you. When you're done with them, you can clear them off. Again, you haven't deleted anything. You just got it off of your desk. This is really useful for linking files together. Okay. You can zip files up from here. You can kick off workflows. You can merge documents all from here. Really useful. Okay, you've also seen me hit this document. If I double click it, it opens up in the native application, which happens to be Adobe for this one. It would open in Word or Excel or whatever you wanted it to. Let's shut this down so we can see better. But you also have a viewer where if I click on this button, it will open up that file in FileHold. And now we can do some basic sticky notes, annotations, and so on. So if I click annotate, I come over here, I can now come in and circle a certain area as an annotation. And there's some other ones too. Do a stamp, and so on. Okay, everything I just showed you with the buttons can now be done through a right click. You can open in the viewer, make a copy. We're going to talk about these two next. Your metadata properties is the same as that button up here. Your copy, move, delete, your notifications, reminders, convert to PDF, export. So you have a lot of right click options here as well. And those are security driven also. I might have less choices on my list than you do based on who we are. No different than Windows. Now the two biggest ones in my mind are workflow and courier. So do you remember in the very beginning when we brought files into the system and we filled in the metadata and I told you that the system will notify you once they're here? That just lets you know that, hey, you're interested in invoices and now we have one and they can go look at it. But I could also set it up in such a way that whenever an invoice comes in, it automatically starts a 7-stage process that touches 10 people and makes sure that we gather the right signatures and the right approval before it gets paid. So just by virtue of hitting save, that workflow could automatically start. Now you wouldn't see anything, it would just automatically start telling people what their role is going to be in this process. What I'm going to do is show you manually what this would look like. So if we go back to a document and we right click and go to workflow, we can see we've got a little bit of a set here of choices. We can look at the workflow history, see what's going on, add this to a workflow that's already in progress. So maybe as it's collecting signatures, we're gathering up data. Or I can initiate a sales or purchase invoice. And sales invoice might go down the hall to the left to 5 people. Purchase invoice might go to 10 people to the right. If we pick one, it will show you what's about to happen. The map will appear, and you can see we're going to add supporting documentation, stamp it, and verify that it's right. This might be the same thing we do over and over, day in, day out, forever, or we might have to add steps to it from time to time and new tasks, or give people more time, or allocate to other people depending on who's in the office that day. You can control all this from this map. Once you're happy with the map though, you can hit OK, and everything will start automatically from there. Emails will go out, calendar entries will go out, and in dark black, you'll be told that you have a new task to take care of. All right, so here's an HR policy sign off. I'm supposed to indicate that I read and understood it, who sent it to me, when, where it's at, the document itself. And if I double click on this file and look at this document, it's now indicated in the audit trail that I looked at it. So we now have a proof source that even if I don't do anything else, Kevin did see this policy. He didn't take action on it, but he did see it. Okay, now if I do the right thing, I'm going to hit submit approval here, and I'm either going to approve it or not. I'm going to put it in commentary. I might attach a document to travel with that commentary, some notes, let's say, and I have to prove that I am who I say I am with credentials here. Now, all of you as managers could go into a dashboard and see where things are. I like to sort by completion. Whoops. Yeah, so let's go the other way. These haven't been started yet. This one's a third of the way done, halfway done, 2/3, and completely done. And you can break it apart and see that a pricing sheet was added. You can even get a copy of it locally if you want. Invoice was stamped, and it was ultimately signed and verified. And you can see all of that from here. Other times you'll go in and you'll see that things were done a little bit sporadically. Tom and Leslie have signed off, but Ann and April and Andy have not. Well, Andy called in sick today. Okay, then delegate it to David so he can get it done. Or if I know I'm going to be out sick, or if I know I'm on vacation, I can set it up in such a way where all my stuff automatically goes to my backup while I'm gone. I might be a manager. I don't want to know everything that goes on, but I want to know if things are late. I want to know if things are canceled. That's important to me, so I can get an immediate notification, a daily or weekly notification that these things are happening. Okay, so it's very powerful. It's also very simple. You will not have to be an IT person to build your own workflows in FileHold. It's very, very easy to build your own roadmaps, and you'll be able to control these on your own. Now, if you have to send something to someone who does not have FileHold, maybe you have contractors. They're never going to use FileHold. They don't even know what FileHold is yet. You can right-click and go to Courier and do something very similar to people who are external. I'm going to initiate this sign-off. I'm going to send it out as an approval stage. It's external, and I'm going to email it to them. I'm going to write in some instructions. I'm also going to allow them to not be able to print or download, require them to have a password, send out notifications every day until they get it done, maybe every hour. I can also set up the transmission to end after a week. If they don't do it in a week, the link goes away altogether. So now somebody who's never heard of FileHold just gets a simple email, and whatever email they're using, whether it's Google or Gmail or Hotmail, and they're going to click a link, and it's going to bring them to this landing page where they can see the document you sent them. They're allowed to download it, view it, or cancel. They can hit view. They'll actually see it in the browser here. You now have an audit trail down to the second that these external people have now looked at this document. So if they say they never got it, you'll know down to the second that they had. Okay, so this is a very simple, very inexpensive way of routing documents outside of the company and still having audit trail and accountability and security all at the same time. Okay, couple more things. Any recent folders you've browsed to will be here. And this is useful if I'm looking at these recent publications, it floats to the top. If I click on policy, now that's at the top. So it's nice if you go to lunch, when you come back, you don't have to start over. You can go look at what you had before. You also have virtual file cabinets where you can build your own virtual cabinet for whatever reason. If you want to put a collection of files together, you can also make them public. So I can put a group of files in here for a client visit, and all of us could work out of this room and see the version history, see who's working on what, all from here. Okay. Everything I've been showing you has been happening at the desktop application level. This is only 7 megs in size. It does have a silent installer, so you can push this out to all of your computers from one centralized server. Okay, and it points to the server wherever you are on the planet. So I'm in Texas, and it points to Vancouver as though I'm down the hall. This can point to the cloud. This could be on premise. It's entirely up to you. In addition to this, you also have a web access point, which looks like this, very similar. Here's your favorites, your checked out documents, your saved searches are here, your workflow choices are here, your courier is here. So not a huge learning curve in terms of the web client. If I want to route something, I would right-click and initiate a courier approval this way. If you hover over buttons, the buttons tell you what they do. So all this can be handled from here as well. You also have a mobile interface for Android, Apple, or Windows. It makes no difference. It works on tablets, it works on phones, but the idea is that you can log in from your 5-inch device or 8-inch device and have a very simplified interface that's much more finger-friendly. You can add documents from the field, take a photograph, and start a workflow. You could do searches from here, and your saved searches will even be listed for you. You can run those queries. You can also sign off on documents from the parking lot if you wanted to. I'm supposed to approve this, and you can see these are what I've been meant to do. Okay. You also have administration capabilities that are very intuitive. You will not have to be an IT person to run reports to see how productive we're being. You'll be able to see a full audit trail of any behavior in FileHold down to the second, from printing to looking at something to removing something to changing ownership. Everything is picked up permanently down to the second. Here's that invoice that somebody was emailed and looked at 11:49.13 Pacific time. Okay. Setting up your own document types will be as simple as answering questions. You will not have to be technical to build this system. We'll help you, of course, that's part of the project. However, later on, if you ever want to change something, this is all you'll do. What's the name of your doc type? Who has rights to see this kind of document? What fields do we want? Are they required or optional? What order should they be in? If the field doesn't exist in this list yet, you can make them on your own, on the fly. You can make them a text field. And if so, how many characters should they be, or what should they start with? You can make drop-down lists, database lookups. You can set up your own workflows. And if your process doesn't exist yet, you can make your own on the fly. How many steps are involved? Are they editable or not? So this is as scary as it gets. You will not have to be technical to do anything in FileHold. Okay, so we're going to wrap things up now. There's a couple last-minute things on the PowerPoint slide we want to get into, and then we'll answer any questions that have come in. So just a few more things. So the first one is scanning. So we purposefully didn't talk a whole lot about scanning today, and that's because FileHold is completely neutral or agnostic to scanning, meaning we can use any scanner that you already own, your multifunctions, your workgroup scanners, desktop scanners. If you already have scanning software, we can use that. We provide you with a front-end tool called SmartSoft Capture for being able to scan and do things like zonal OCR and batch cleanup and batch separation and so on. We also have an integration component called a file scan bridge to talk with things like Kofax or Abby, DataCap, and so on. So if you already have a front-end tool, we can work with it. If you don't, we'll provide tools, or we can just use your scanner that you have. We can also localize into different languages. We obviously did English today, but here's an example of a Spanish and French language pack. So FileHold has a data dictionary that we can provide you, and you can port any language into it, and that's included with the product. Tons of third-party integration components, from being able to print to FileHold. FastFind means I can hit a button from other applications and launch searches. Full Office integration, SharePoint, Active Directory, and we also have a fully exposed web services API toolkit to be able to do any integration that you want. We also provide you with health check software to make sure that all services are running correctly. There's nothing proprietary about FileHold. All the services behind the scenes will be things you've heard of. But if there is a problem, let's say you do a Windows update and there's an issue, this will be one of the first places we come to reboot a process or to make sure IIS is running correctly, make sure everything is where it needs to be. Forms processing is a standard feature. It's built right into FileHold. You saw some of that early on. If you have forms, whether it's a Word form or a PDF form, we can read the fields off of that form and populate files automatically for you. So if you do have forms, this is a game changer for a lot of you. If you don't have forms, this may be the time to start thinking about it. It can really speed things up. Okay, deep levels of security. We have single point of logon, web services, SSL, session level, template level, and structural levels of security. We have optional two-factor authentication via Duo. We also have 12 predefined roles that can be set up through Active Directory or as standalone or a mixture of the two. tons of reporting and audit capabilities, from system audits, activity, library audits, usage logs. You can set up any custom report you want via searches, but also through SQL reporting tools. You can import a lot of the screens or export a lot of the screens out to CSV. You can also export all of your data out of FileHold on your own. You will not need anything from us to be able to get your own data out along with the metadata via XML. We are FIPS compliant as well. And finally, information governance and records management. We can store both editable, active and inactive documents or records. We can enforce retention and disposition. We can track physical equipment, documents, boxes, things that will never be scanned. We can still track those assets in FileHold. Version control, history, full text search, legal hold, metadata storage is all part of FileHold as well. Okay, so this is our last slide. I'm going to keep this part